Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting intermediate math class. Today we're going to be in lesson 6.5, continuing in chapter 6 here, finishing up talking about measurements and the way that we convert those measurements. In today's lesson, which is on page 235, we're going to be talking about something called dimensional analysis. What dimensional analysis is we're going to be using it. It's just a secondary way. So we learned how to convert measurements. Now we're learning a secondary way to convert those measurements. And we're going to be using ratios. You say, what is a ratio? Well, you're already supposed to know that. A ratio is when you have two fractions that are equal to each other. Like, for example, 1/4 equals 2/8. That's a ratio. Why? Because 1/4 of something is the exact same as 2/8 of something. If you reduce 2/8, what do you get? You reduce it and you get 1/4. So this is a ratio because it is equal. Ratios must be equal. So we're going to use this concept. We're going to use these fractions. And some of you are like, fractions. Okay, don't worry about it yet. We're not going to be doing anything too complex here. So just hang in there, and we'll see if we can figure this out. Let me just say this as well. Dimensional analysis is typically used in science. So, like your science classes that you take, you'll be using this. So this is a skill that you're going to need. This is not just oh, it's just a secondary way and it's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal because in science class, and if you ever go into a career in science, you're going to be using dimensional analysis to solve a lot of problems. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to kind of go back and forth between a problem and between the steps. And so that's how we'll kind of go through it. So you got the first one, write the original measurement as a fraction. I promise you it's easier than you think. What you're going to do is you're going to come down here to your problem. You're going to have 4 pints equals blank cups. And we're just going to write the original, which is 4 pints, as a fraction. How do I write 4 pints as a fraction? Well, you're going to write 4 pints over 1. I told you that was easy, right? You always write whatever you have over 1. Easy. Make it a fraction. That's it. Don't you wish all the steps were that easy? Well, they're not, all right? But that first one is pretty easy. All right, number 2. The second thing that we need to do is we need to write the needed conversion factor as the other fraction. Notice it says make sure that the original unit is always the denominator. So we want to come back here and say how many cups in a pint? How many cups in a pint? How many pints in a cup? You can go, it could be bigger or smaller. It doesn't matter. So what we want to do is we want to write this as we're going to write this cups over pints. Cups over pints. Notice I had to put pints in the denominator. I couldn't put cups in the denominator, right? Because I'll tell you why. At some point, this is going to have to cancel out because our answer only has cups in it. So we need pints to cancel. So we have to put 1 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. If we can do that, then we will get a cancel at some point. So there we go. Now, we need to write right here, we need to write the conversion factor. There are 2 cups in 1 pint. All right, so there's our conversion factor. So we basically just write our conversion factor as a fraction with what I'm looking for, pint in the denominator. I don't want pints in the numerator because I'm going to be left with pints, and pints need to cancel. Very important, okay? All right, so there we go. 2 cups equals 1 pint. Now, step 3, we're going to just solve this ratio. Don't forget to cancel the original units. And actually, I put an equal sign here. I should have put a multiply sign here. I'll put an X there. Our equal sign is going to be over here. So, sorry about that. But we're going to be multiplying right here. And what I need to do is I need to go ahead and I'll just cancel out my pints. That's the easiest thing to do. First, we'll just cancel out the one that needs to cancel. And now we're left with 4 times 2 cups. So we're going to be left with 8 cups over 1. What's 8 cups over 1? It's just 8. And so our answer to that problem would be 8. And you might say, but Mr. Steve, I really like the other method better where I was doing larger, smaller, smaller, larger. And you might like that because maybe that's what you've been doing more in the past, or maybe you just really like that method versus this method. I get it, I understand, but you do need to learn this method because, again, like I said, this is going to be something that you're going to need for your science classes in the future. All right, so here we go. We have days and hours in this one. So let's go back through the steps. I won't kind of scroll up to the steps all the time. Let's try to remember the steps. Okay, what was the first one? The first one was to write this first measurement as a fraction. This is the easiest step in the world. 144 over 1. Now, it's not just 144, it's 144 hours. Don't forget your measurement there because you're going to need that measurement because you're going to need to cancel it once you write your conversion factor. And that's going to be times. And now we need to know how many hours are in a day. All right. So how many hours are in a day? There's 24 hours in a day. Now, always write. See, this is where you might get confused. Always write your hours in the bottom. So remember, there was 24 hours in one day. Now notice on the last one, we ended up with 1 in the bottom and 2 in the top. In this one, we end up with 1 in the top and 24 in the bottom. Your numbers are going to be maybe in the top or in the bottom. Your 1 is going to be in the top or the bottom. The thing that's important, the thing that you have to remember right here, the thing that will mess you up on these is if you don't put your hours across from each other. You have to put them diagonal because you have to cancel them, okay? So there we go. That's our setup on our problem. And now we're just going to go ahead and cancel hours out. And so now we're left with what? 144 times 1 day. 144 days over 24. All right, now what do we have? We have another fraction, and we need to go ahead and divide that out. And this is where, again, we're getting into larger, smaller, multiply, smaller, larger, divide. So we are going from smaller to larger. So you can count on the fact that when we're going from smaller to larger, we are going to have a division problem. And we do. 144 divided by 24. We need to reduce this, okay? How do you reduce? Well, you just go ahead and divide it. 144 divided by 24. 24 goes into 144. It goes 6 times. 6 times 4 is 4. 2, 6 times 12, 14. There we go. 144 is 0. 6 days is our answer. 6 days over 1 or just 6 days. Once we kind of cancel it out and reduce it. Okay? You might be thinking, this is more complicated. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. This is a little bit more complicated. But again, your science classes in the future, when you get to chemistry class, you will need this. So make sure that you're focused on this so that you can learn it for later classes. All right, let's do this one. We're going from gallons to cups. Now we have a problem in this one. I don't know how to get from gallons to cups. We're going to need an intermediate measurement here so that we can go from gallons to cups. So if you remember our charts that we learned, hopefully you learned those. If you didn't, go back and memorize those. We need to go from gallons to pints and from pints to quarts and from quarts to cups. All right, so we got to do several different conversions here. Gallons to quarts, quarts to pints, pints to cups. All right, so let's go through that. Let's go ahead and make our little, and we can actually write the whole thing out right now. So the first step is to go and write our original as a fraction. So let's write 3 gallons as our fraction, right, over 1. That's going to be times, again, we have to go from gallons to quart, from quart to pint, and from pint to cup. Okay? So we're going to have 4 different measurements going on here. So in the second one, Now we're going, remember, gallons always has to be on the bottom because we have to cancel that. So how many quarts are in a gallon? 4 quarts are in a gallon. But now we have to convert this one. So now we have to go with another fraction over here. And now we need quarts in the denominator because we're going to have to cancel the quarts. Because look, quarts is not in our answer. We have to get all the way over here to cups. So we have to go quarts in the bottom. And now we're going to pints. So how many quarts are in a pint? 2 quarts are in 1 pint. I should have put the 1 over here for gallons too. So sorry. This is supposed to be a P. I'm not sure why I put a Q right there. Sorry about that. And so that's pints. I think I said pints and then wrote a Q. But anyways, the next one that we do, we have to cancel the pints because pints are not in the answer. So we have to have pints as our denominator here. And then, quarts already canceled. So we're going from pints to what? We're going from pints to cups. So cups needs to be in the numerator there, and pints needs to be in the denominator. So now the question is how many cups in a pint? There are 2 cups in 1 pint. And once we get there, then that should give us our final answer, and our final answer will be in cups. Because, again, we're not canceling it with anything. There's no cups in another denominator. All right. Some of you are like, mind blown. Watch it again. Scroll it back and watch it again if you need to. All right, let's go ahead and cancel. Let's go ahead and do our thing. Let's go ahead and multiply across. So let's go ahead and just, first of all, just cancel out all of these things. Okay, so all of those are going to cancel, 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 and we're going to end up with only cups, and that's what we want because that's where our answer is. So now what we can do is just go ahead and multiply. Look, the denominators, we multiply across and we just get 1. So our denominator is going to be 1. The only letter up here is going to be C for cups. And now we can just multiply our numbers together. So 3 times 4 times 2 times 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 times 2 is going to be 48. So 48 cups over 1, which equals 48 cups. So our answer is 48. Complicated, maybe the setup, but once you get it, it's like, oh, that's not too bad. It's not terrible. So yeah, just work your way through that. Let's do one more. Let's go from 316,800 inches, 316,800 over 1. Don't forget that's inches. And we're going to miles. So we're going to go through, we can go through yards or feet. Doesn't matter because we know the conversion to miles for both of those. I think the book in the example goes through feet. So we'll go through feet. You could go through yards. It doesn't really matter there. So again, we're going to put inches in our next fraction. How many inches in a foot? There are 12 inches in a foot. So that's going to be 1 on top. Notice now our number is in the denominator. What does that mean? It means we're going to be dividing this time. So, or we're going to have to reduce a really big number, whichever way you want to look at it, which is the same thing. Reducing is the same as dividing. So, and then we want to go to miles. So we need to get miles over here. So miles over, we need to cancel our feet. So how many feet in a mile? Okay, there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Okay, so let's go ahead and cancel our inches, cancel our feet with feet. Now we're just left with miles. That's good. Notice up here, these are just 1, so we're going to have the same number that we had in the top. So 316,800 over, and that's going to be miles, over 1 times 12, and then 12 times 5,280. I'm going to need a calculator for that one. Sorry, you might be able to do that one in your head, but I can't. So 12 times 5,280 is going to equal 63,360. 63,360. All right. Now we need to go ahead and reduce that, and that's a big thing to reduce. So one thing that you could do is just cancel your zeros, and so now you're just dealing with these numbers. That would be fine. Or you can just do it and try, just see if you can divide it into it and see what you come up with. So let's go ahead and divide that out, and let's put 316,800 divided by 63,360. And let's see if that goes in evenly. Yes, it does. We get 5. That equals 5 miles over 1, or just 5 miles. So there's your answer. All right. Well, that was maybe a little bit more of a complicated lesson, but it's definitely something that you need to be working on, to be trying to wrap your mind around, so that when you do get into chemistry class, when you do get into some of your upper level science classes, it's not like, what is going on? You'll come into it with a knowledge of how to do this dimensional analysis. All right. You're probably going to need to slide that one back a couple times, right? And try to figure out some of those things. So go ahead and do that. Slide it back, watch it again, and work through this, okay? That's all I've got for you. Hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.